Growing up, I had dreams of becoming an amazing artist. I wanted to see my artwork in a New York gallery, and as a kid, there was a period of time where that was the most important thing to me. I could feel it in my bones. This is what I was born to do. I bought a sketchbook and pencils and I got to work. And for a few days, I was committed. I learned, I studied, I drew, and I improved. And then at some point, I misplaced my sketchbook and I got distracted doing other things. And to make a really long story short, here I am today, not a famous artist, not even a hobby artist. In fact, I can't really draw at all. I totally stink. It's funny how quickly a dream can fade. Has something like that ever happened to you? You had a big dream, a big idea or goal of something that you wanted to become great at. You even started and put in the work, but then you forgot about it. Maybe it wasn't drawing for you. Maybe you wanted to start your own YouTube channel. Or maybe you're an athlete and you had goals to level up your skills this year. Maybe you're going to work really hard on your grades this school year, but here you are, months later, not where you wanted to be when it all started. The quickest way for something to go from super important to kind of forgot about it is for it to just be out of our sight. Out of sight, out of mind is a for real thing. And this isn't just true about activities or goals we have. Think about it when it comes to people in your life, like friendships. When we lose connection with our friends, we sometimes fill our heads with ideas about things that may have changed since we last saw them. Are we really still friends? Did they replace me with someone else? Sometimes friendships slowly drift apart and we begin to question things and doubt the friendship. And it all starts with a lack of interaction or time together. What happens with us and a dream that we want to accomplish but end up abandoning is the same thing that happens with friends that we want to stay close to but end up drifting apart. We have a goal, we have an end in mind, but without making a habit out of the work to make that goal a reality, the dream dies, the friendship fizzles, and things just don't turn out the way that we want. Because without making a habit out of spending time with people we care about, or without making a habit out of practicing the skills that we need to make the dreams come true, we don't accomplish what we want. And here's the thing that I want you to know. Many of you may have just started an exciting new relationship with God. Or maybe you've been following Jesus for a long time now, but you don't want to drift apart from Him. Or if I had to guess, I would bet some of you have had the same sort of experience with God already. The relationship fizzles, the goal of feeling close to Him is never reached, and maybe you have found yourself wondering why that is. Is it because God is invisible? Or that He feels far away? Or maybe you even wonder if you did something wrong to cause the distance. Whatever idea you have of what you think a relationship with God looks like, maybe it just isn't happening and it feels a bit like the goal you abandoned and the friendship that just isn't the same. And the question you're asking yourself is this the way it has to be? When Jesus was on earth, He had a moment when He was surrounded by several religious experts. They loved asking Him questions, sometimes because they wanted to learn from Him, but mainly because they wanted to trip Him up and get Him caught in a trap. They wanted to catch Him saying something that would cause Jesus to lose His influence and ruin His reputation. At one point, one of the religious leaders asked Jesus, "What is the greatest commandment?" These religious leaders thought that they understood God and His law better than anyone. They were in no danger of forgetting about God. Following God's rules were front and center of their entire lives. And now, in front of a crowd of people, they asked Jesus, out of the hundreds of laws and commandments, which one would He make number one? Jesus responded with an answer that every one of the teachers and experts of the law would have known by heart because they had heard it their entire lives. Mark 12:30 says this, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength." Jesus tells us what he wants us to do. Love an invisible God with everything that we have. But he doesn't say how at that moment. Later, Jesus uses an illustration to help explain that. John, one of Jesus' followers and friends, records a big conversation between Jesus and his disciples. Jesus knew that while he was visible to his friends at that moment, he wouldn't be much longer. Eventually, he would return to heaven and no longer walk on earth. It didn't mean that Jesus would no longer exist. He would just no longer be visible in the way that they had gotten used to. So with that in mind, Jesus gives them this illustration. In John 15:5, he says this, "I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing." Now, back then, agriculture or farming was as common and popular as cell phones are today. It was a part of everyday life. Everybody knew about farming, vines, and plant life. They would immediately have known that the branch of the plant can only create fruit if that fruit is connected to the nutrients the vine provides. So let's put it in terms that we would use today. It would be like saying that the power cord gets electricity it needs from the power outlet to give power to whatever it's plugged into. The verse written a little differently would go something like this. I'm the power outlet. You are the cord. If you remain in me and I in you, you will power many devices. Apart from me, you can power nothing. Most of us have things at home that need to be plugged into an outlet in order to work. Think about the incredible things you can do and all of the people you can connect with through your phone or your Xbox. If your Xbox is connected to an outlet, it can do wonders. If your Xbox is unplugged, it's a pile of metal. If your phone is connected to an outlet, it's the single most innovative piece of technology of all time. But if your phone has no battery left, it has all the potential in the world, but that's all it is, potential. If your device is connected to an outlet, it has true power. If your device has no electricity, it's dead. This is a lot like you and your relationship with God. You have so much power and so much potential to do so many things. You can love your friends, you can serve your family, you can make wise decisions. You can pursue God's plan for your life. You can change the world right where you are simply by living the life that God has called you to live. You can do all of these things and so much more in your everyday life if you are plugged in. That's when you begin to bear fruit, which is equal to your devices being powered up. When you're connected to God, you get to live as the single greatest creation of all time. God said so when He made you. If you aren't connected, you have all the potential in the world, but there's something standing in the way. You are still the greatest creation of all time, but there's a gap between where you are and where you could be. We need to stay connected to God to know God, and we need to know God in order to love God more. And loving God, that's what Jesus said was the most important commandment of all time. In order to love God with everything that we are, we need to be connected to Him with all that we are. So I want you to think of it this way. Connecting with God will help you know Him better. But connecting with an invisible God will take some effort. It will take making connection a habit. Loving God with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength means that we are putting in the effort over time to make that happen. So, how do we do that? Well, there's lots of ways to connect with God. So, we're going to get started with this one simple idea. Spend time with God. Over the next few weeks, we're going to talk more specifically about ways that you can spend time with God. But this week, I want to give you a challenge to spend 15 minutes with God each day. Doing what, you might ask? Well, here are a few ideas. You can listen to worship music and think about God while you're listening to it. You can go for a walk and pray, talking to God about things that you're grateful for or things that you need help with. You can write down some prayers or thoughts or questions in a journal. You can read the Habits devotional that's on the YouVersion Bible app. Pick one of these things and go for it. Or come up with small ideas as a small group on how to build habits to get to know God in everyday ways. Whatever you decide, it doesn't have to be perfect or feel magical. There's one goal and one point for spending time with God: to get to know Him better by connecting with Him, like connecting with a power source. To begin to build into our lives the space for a habit of time spent with God, just know that whatever you decide to try, it may look different for different people. Because just like there are endless ways that you connect with your friends, seeing them at school, hanging out on the weekends, commenting on their social media, there are endless ways to connect with God. The point isn't how you do it, it's that you do it over and over and over again, making a habit, a pattern out of time spent with Him. Getting to know and connecting with a God we can't see will take time. It will take creating a habit over time before it starts to feel easier and more natural. But I love this phrase out of the book of James in the New Testament. James 4:8 says this: "Come near to God, and He will come near to you." There is no magic formula about this. It's just taking the time to make a habit. Over time, we will find ourselves closer to God, and He will feel closer to us. Even though God is with us all the time, the habit of spending time with Him will eventually bring a feeling of closeness we maybe haven't experienced before. Imagine for a second if you made a habit out of connecting with God. What if, because of the habit, you felt comfortable with Him, closer to Him? What if, in the process of spending time with Him, you really began to notice yourself loving God more with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength? How cool would it be to feel like you were connected to the power and the presence and the love of God? But here's the thing: God wants you to make a habit of spending time with Him, of getting close to Him, not because He wants to control you, but because He wants us to be close to Him. He's a good dad who wants a good relationship with his kids, and that includes you.